my friends, it's Corona-chan time once again. Everyone seems to be saying good luck to her, and I think we can go over some of the more recent news that has happened in the past week or two since I've done the last video. How about the stupid stuff first? Why not? First of all, Jackie Chan has decided to sing a song about coronavirus. Chinese artistes led by Jackie Chan rally national unity, pay tribute in song amid a coronavirus outbreak. China's new coronavirus anthem, Believe Love Will Triumph. We gotta check this out.
为了你，我拼了命，哪怕面对枪林弹雨，隔着生死的一道门，我保证不离不弃。
Yeah?
最难舍是这份情。
Okay, it's just generic Chinese pop. I don't need to listen to any more of that, but holy fuck. The timeline we're in right now, guys. And of course, that's not the end of Jackie Chan's involvement. He's also decided to offer 2 million RMB, which is about 140,000 US dollars, as a reward to anyone who develops a vaccine for the coronavirus. Unfortunately for Jackie, I don't think this thing's going to be stopped anytime soon. Of course, there have also been some other enterprising individuals. For example, this was a 2013 movie from South Korea. The English title is just The Flu. Well, it's been re-released as Coronavirus. Alright guys, alright. And of course, the noodle shop in Toronto called Little Wuhan has been getting a lot of call-ins regarding the coronavirus, asking for bat soup and etc. I have a feeling that this will be this decade's equivalent of calling GameStop and asking for Battletoads. As time goes on, video keeps getting leaked from China because I guess there are enough citizens there who understand that what's going on is not right, not normal, and the outside world needs to know about it because the Chinese government is not going to tell anyone or admit to any of this. You have situations where people who are suspected of having the virus are being forced into quarantine by the police. Video after video keeps coming out of the actual symptoms of these people who have been infected. And anyone who tells you that this is just another flu or something, they're an idiot at this point. I'm not saying that you should be, like, really concerned about your own personal health. You know, you might catch it, you might not catch it. You probably won't die from it. But let's be honest, this is not just a flu situation. This is a virus that takes between 2 and 4 weeks to incubate within a person, and they can transmit it while incubating it. And then those symptoms are going to last for another 4 weeks. And during that time, you're going to have pneumonia. For most people, it'll probably be a minor case, but this is not a situation of, LOL, it's a flu, let's laugh it off. And the secondary effects, you know, the absolute pandemonium happening in the streets right now in China, that's really what's going to hurt more people than the virus itself. People running out of food, the military getting involved, people getting into fights, supplies running low, riots, power outages. This stuff is all serious. In fact, far more serious than the actual virus itself. Of course, it doesn't help things that the military running around in the quarantine zone, they all have patches on them with skulls. China, can you guys try to at least not be so obviously Saturday morning cartoon villain about this shit? But hey, you know, you're just a racist and a bigot if you say that it's anything but, you know, a regular flu. It's not a big deal. Come on, guys. Nothing says it's just the flu like cops smashing and grabbing medical supplies and food like it's the end of their fucking civilization, throwing it into the back of their truck, and also stealing from a grandma. Don't worry about it, guys. It's just the sniffles. It's not a big deal at all. After all, the government's got it well under control. They're just going to come into every single place of work and blast it with every single pesticide and disinfectant you can imagine. Thank you very much, dear leader. We will definitely breathe in some of these particles for the good of the nation. We do have to talk about exactly what China has been covering up from the rest of the world in order to save face. There have been many rumors of both the amount of infected as well as the death toll being significantly higher, sometimes up to 10 times higher than the official Chinese numbers. Meanwhile, China deciding to reclassify what catching the disease actually is to make the numbers lower, that doesn't help anything either. But beyond that, there are some other issues we have to discuss. Like, for example, the fact that China has been refusing outside help, despite Chinese doctors saying they desperately need it. Nearly the entire nation has been basically placed under quarantine at this point. That's nearly 2 billion people they've got in there, I think. It's either 1.5 or 2 billion. The official quarantine zone currently contains about 500 million, but basically the entirety of China is placed under quarantine. And they're still not able to bring this virus under control. They've been welding people into their apartment blocks and shutting down the elevator access. They've been turning off elevators, and it's still getting out. It's because the nature of the centralized system in China is such that all these apartment blocks have air circulating between them. and people inside who are in quarantine are still getting sick, which means that this virus is airborne now. Because if you have, say, giant ventilation ducts going from building to building, just because it's more efficient and to centralize all of the various air conditioning and whatever in these huge apartment blocks, so air is just circulating between them, and everyone inside is getting sick, it's an airborne variant. And at this point, locking entire cities and the entire nation down, it's not going to stop it. China basically dropped the ball on this. It's completely outside of their control now. This is a report from 4chan, and we all know how 4chan likes to fake things, so take it as you will. But they have tried to at least provide some proof, so let's at least go over this. I am a lab technician at Huoshenshan Hospital in Wuhan. The situation is so much worse than you know. Reported death of coronavirus are just those of the sudden type, not through pneumonia. We daily remove patients with pneumonia, and they don't return. Whole sections of the hospital, 200 rooms each, and they're not recorded. They are filled immediately with new people with pneumonia. Please know we are trying, but there's simply too many people. How many deaths by pneumonia have there been? How bad is the situation? Only guess by how many rooms empty each day, 200 to 400 a day. The army moves them out into vans and they don't return. And here's the picture where he posts, he writes 4chan and then the date, the same date that he posted on the thread. Do not believe what the government says. 99% of those with pneumonia have left not to return. With a fever, there's a sudden death of near 30% and no symptoms, but diagnosis rate is at 5 to 10%. I have no data from other areas. The army and the party that are infected recover at a much higher rate, administered by army doctors only. Other recovery report less than 50%. I would post more photos, but there's other workers here, and I'm typing this under a table while there's a centrifuge running. And then somebody decided to get some pictures from that same Wuhan hospital to compare, and it looks like, yeah, they're probably in the same location. Meanwhile, because most people who have the mild variant of coronavirus, they simply just take 2 ibuprofen or whatever and then hope to ride it out in their own places without calling any attention to themselves. And for most mild cases, that'll actually probably do, but that doesn't change the fact that the incubation period is going to be around 4 weeks, and that you're going to be in bed for an additional 4 weeks afterwards. So that's like a potentially 8 weeks where you could be infecting other people. So to stop this practice of, just riding it out in your own home, Chinese cities have been trying to flush out coronavirus patients by stopping the sale of cough medicine. So if you wanted to tackle this disease on your own, just in the privacy of your own home, not allowed to anymore. Here's probably the scariest bit of all. I've been thinking about Li Wenliang, the guy who was the whistleblower. He was the original doctor who discovered it, and he said we have to start telling people, we have to start figuring this out, and the Chinese suppressed him. It will take me another 15 or so days to recover, and then I will join medical workers in fighting the epidemic. He never did. He died. Instead, he died from the virus. Here's a more detailed timeline of events regarding Li Wenliang. January 10th showed symptoms. He didn't test positive until January 30th. He went into critical care on the 5th of February, and he died on the 7th of February. Some of you might be thinking, oh shit, this virus is actually crazy because it has this huge incubation period where you're passing it around and it can't be detected, and then only later. Yeah, that's all true. That's all true. But I think something else happened here. I don't actually think that the virus ramped up and killed this guy. I think the Chinese killed him. I have no evidence on this, it's just a gut feeling. But I feel like they used the cover of the disease, which was getting better in him last we heard, as an excuse to poison him and do away with him for bringing this great shame down on the nation of China, when really it's just the fact that he was reporting it and he was trying to solve the problem and to work on it. But that's how these totalitarian, centralized communist systems run. The person who reports the problem is the first person to get killed. Here's some more evidence that the number of deaths are a lot higher than what China's willing to admit. Data from Windy.com shows a massive release of sulfur dioxide gas from the outskirts of Wuhan, commonly associated with the burning of organic matter. Levels are elevated even compared with the rest of China. It would seem that there are so many cremations going on. How many bodies? Well, a week ago, another 4chan user decided to look into it, and it seems to be that they're just burning 13,000 bodies in an open field outside the city. There will be mass graves because of this, I'm pretty sure. Anyone who knows how these things go will tell you that it's not the virus itself that kills you, it's the panic that sets in while the virus runs its course. And that has begun to happen in China as well. The situation of patients with other severe diseases in Hubei is getting more dire each day. Cancer patients can't get chemotherapy. Uremia patients nowhere to get dialysis. Many are posting on Weibo appealing for help with the hashtag novel coronavirus secondary disaster. The medical system is so clogged up with coronavirus patients that everyone else who has a problem that's not related to coronavirus, they're just left to die too. But remember, It's just a flu, bro, and you're a bigot if you think otherwise. It's completely normal, 100% fine for a government to issue bounties on people who are infected with the flu. That's $71 per stuffed up head. It might sound a bit heartless because this is a time of human suffering, but we also have to discuss the economic effect. Considering that China does a good chunk of the world's manufacturing right now, this is going to affect everything. For example, car companies are beginning to close down their plants in other nations because they can't get the parts they need from China. Copper prices have hit a 3-year low because of coronavirus, and the worst is yet to come. Maybe it's time to start investing in copper. Who knows? The shipping of food has also begun to break down. I'm sure it's absolutely terrible in China, but it'll only get worse. Listen, if you haven't done so now, go out and get some dried food that you can keep for like the next 3 months. Just keep it in the back of your kitchen or something. Get yourself a sack of red kidney beans and a sack of rice. Maybe grab some multivitamins or something. And what you should be doing is, if there's a shortage of food in your town, you can at least have like rice and beans, maybe some spices just to make it kind of taste half decent. You eat that shit for 3 meals a day for the next month. You're not going to enjoy it, but it'll keep you alive. It's better than fighting with somebody at the grocery store over the last sack of potatoes or something, or having to risk going out as people are driving around erratically. Like, seriously, there's so many things that could kill you in this situation that isn't the coronavirus. You should be prepared. And the West is finally starting to take notice, despite all the cries of people claiming racism and it's just a cold and whatever. The Pentagon is providing military installations near 11 major airports for those coming from overseas with the coronavirus. This isn't SARS, guys. There's so many more cases than SARS. There's so many more deaths than SARS. It seems to be so much more transmissible than SARS. This isn't the end of human civilization. This isn't even the end of our culture or anything like that. It's not like we're going to collapse into some kind of anarchistic state, I don't think. But while this thing works its way through, be prepared to stay at home for a month or two. Get your supplies, get ready. Oh, did I say while it works through? It might actually not. It might just become another flu that we have to deal with every year. When will the threat of coronavirus end? It might return every winter. It might just turn into like another flu, another cold, another thing that humanity has to deal with. It might just become endemic to the population. Maybe the people living 100 years from now will not understand a world without coronavirus. Who knows? There are people who still believe that it might be a bioweapon. And I'm starting to think that might be the better option. Like, if it's actually an escaped bioweapon from that Wuhan lab, then yeah, it means that China's developing biological weapons, and that's obviously a terrible situation. And it's made even worse by the fact that there was a scientist there who was dumb enough, incompetent enough, or evil enough to release it on his own population in Wuhan. And now the entire world has to deal with this shit. Yeah, that's all pretty terrible. But what's the alternative? The alternative is that those Chinese wet markets that I talked about in the first video, those things that have been around for thousands of years and have generated nearly every terrible plague that mankind has ever experienced, with maybe the exception of the Spanish flu and the smallpox that the Europeans introduced to the Native Americans. I think every other pandemic came from China at some point. And in those wet markets, there's no standard, there's no practice of being clean whatsoever. Couple that with the fact that Chinese culture seems to value eating these animals that frankly human beings shouldn't be eating, because they're known to carry certain diseases that can basically ruin the human population. Hey, maybe you shouldn't be eating the bat soup. Call me a bigot if you want, but I'm not touching that shit. So really, we have two bad possible options here. Either China's developing bioweapons, or traditional Chinese culture has basically created a nation full of infants that put everything they can get their hands on in their mouths, as children are apt to do. And now the civilized world has to deal with the fallout from their behavior. Thanks. Alongside that BitChute channel that I mentioned in the last video, which has massively expanded since I put it in the description of that video, where they've been uploading videos of like banned videos from China of stuff related to the coronavirus. There's also a Twitter thread that I'll link in the description of this video. It's a Twitter event called the Coronavirus Videos Collection. A bunch of banned videos are going there as well. Considering that China does not want us to talk about this stuff, and that the social justice rubes here in the West are calling us racist if we even look at it, I think it's important for us to back these up. So if you can stomach it, check out these sources. Contribute anything that you have that isn't there, that needs to be archived. And most importantly, don't panic. Brush up on your hand washing routines. Stockpile some food for the short-term future. And you know what? Most of us will probably be fine. Don't lose your head about it, okay? Good luck out there. I love you.